Damian, good to have you today. Thank you for joining us. Damian, we're really proud to have you on this call today, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about accessibility in tech and how companies can be more inclusive in how they develop products. And we're going to be talking to you specifically about some of the challenges you've faced in your life. Some of them are fairly obvious, some less obvious challenges.
Okay.
But I'm going to start with, I've been doing some research, and you mentioned to me on a call we had yesterday about how Microsoft are taking this really, really seriously.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with actually a message from their Chief Accessibility Officer, a lady called Lay Flurrie. So she says, technology can empower people to achieve more. It can help strengthen education opportunities and make the workplace more inviting and inclusive for people with disabilities. And with more than 1 billion people with disabilities in the world, Microsoft believes accessibility and inclusion are essential to delivering on our mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. We're on a journey and continue to learn and grow as we move forward. We hope by sharing what we've learned, other organizations can build out and accelerate their disability inclusion programs, hire great talent, and reduce the employment rate for people with disabilities. Game on.
Yeah.
Now that kind of sums up what we're going to be talking about today, isn't it, Damian?
Yeah. I've had the fortune of working with Microsoft, and everything that was said in that statement actually permeates the organization, because Natia Sadella, the chief executive, has a child with cerebral palsy. And basically, when he took over from the previous chief executive, he said, I want my board to work to their strengths, and I really want them to get to know what matters to our customers. And because of how responsive and respectful Lay Flurrie is to the disability sector, and she's really a powerful voice to keep track of, she very much put a powerful business case towards accessibility, and that has helped Microsoft turn the big ship around.
And yeah, I mean, I've read a lot more on their website, and they really are fully committed to this. And in workplace, technology is that central driver for productivity.
Yeah.
But when it's not accessible, it excludes people, and it puts up barriers to employment. It limits opportunities for people with disability to get hired, and it's a real challenge for companies, isn't it, Damian?
Yeah. And it's also, people say, well, what's the business case? Disabled people and people with long-term conditions have got over £1 trillion to spend on products and services. So make sure your products and services are accessible to those people. And also, part of Lay Flurrie's campaign is to democratize assistive technology, because I'm lucky I can afford an expensive screen reader, but there's people out there that might not be able to do that. So just build it into your core offering so that you're taking down some of those barriers that people might face.
Absolutely. And you've got experience of working with people like Google, Apple, Microsoft. You actually helped design and develop a Google Chrome extension, didn't you, called
Yes.
Text Help?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Damian?
Basically, going a bit more into my personal story, I have a reading age of 7, but I have a master's degree. I also have many other qualifications to my name, and the way I've overcome some of those barriers is through technology. So when I was looking for a good, reliable screen reader, there was nothing on the market. It was always priced so far out that if you're a disabled person on benefits or other forms of income, you couldn't afford it. So being cheeky or willing to break some of those barriers, if you like, I wrote to the chief executive of Text Help, and I said, we need to do something about this. And within 7 weeks, he convened people from Microsoft, Google, Apple to be sat in their boardroom, and he invited me to Text Help, and we started on this platform that is now being used by 96 million users.
Fantastic. That's it's a great example of just spotting an opportunity and seeing there's a definite gap in the market and looking to help people.
And just to share another, I guess everyone here has heard of NASDAQ. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, NASDAQ have got a really good board portal, but it's not accessible. Okay. And they've got some of the biggest global government contracts for that portal, but they don't truly understand accessibility. So part of my mission as a social entrepreneur and a social architect is that I want to help businesses understand if you break some of these barriers down, you can actually make yourself market leaders.
And that's the key, isn't it? To sadly, to sell it to a board of directors, there needs to be a direct correlation between doing this for people to affect their bottom line. But that's it in a nutshell, isn't it, Damian?
Well, let's use the big example of Steve Jobs and Apple. Okay, they are now a £2 billion company, and he put screen readers and accessibility in all their devices. It's not an add-on. You can just do it using all their devices.
Yeah. So, Damian, you're 37 years old. You're from Cardiff. 38. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Well, taking a year off you there. You're a coach yourself. Motivational speaker, and I guess the rest of you probably won't know, but Damian's a published author. So, Damian, tell us about the book you wrote, and its unusual title. Let's be honest.
The title's called "I'm Not a Spaz, I'm Safe," and that comes out of when I was training to be a health and social care manager, stroke government advisor. I was lucky enough to work with, shall we call them, for the sake of a recorded interview, disaffected young people, and basically I needed to make sure that this particular young person didn't smoke a particular herb that was being in a council building. So me and this other senior youth worker went outside, and he was calling him all the names under the sun. And I said, do you realize you've just called this particular youth worker a spaz, and that's really derogatory to people like me? And he said, Damian, you're not a spaz, you're safe. And I said, can you explain that for me? He said, you're the only one that's actually taken the time to get to know me. And I said, my first book was going to be called I'm Not a Spaz, I'm Safe. I've taken a lot of stick off the disability community for calling it that. I've even had some disabled people challenge me over the title, but the challenge I've given them back is I've said, if you're challenged by it, go read the book, because the story I've just shared with you is in the book.
And I've just started reading the book myself today, actually, Damian, in preparation for this interview, and it's heartfelt, and it's very much, all about you, obviously, and your journey. And I was reading that basically your condition was caused from premature birth and being in an intensive care cot. Is that right?
Yeah. Basically, I'll give a little bit of the start of the book away. I believe I was given 3 choices of a life, and I believe I chose the life with the disability. So I could have had a good life, I could have had a better life, or I could have had a worse life. And I believe I chose this life with a disability to teach me and to help me teach other people about it. But the reason I have a disability is because the technology failed me twice. Not just once, it failed me twice.
And Damian, thinking back yourself, when did you first know that you had this passion for technology?
From really early on. I was the type of kid that would never wait until family had set technology up. I'd just get straight in there and use it. And I'd work out how to use it without looking at the instructions. Probably because I couldn't read the instructions, if I'm honest.
That's like a typical man, that, Damian, anyway. We always just get things out and throw the instructions away anyway, surely.
Yeah, but I think that's what's given me the passion to really look at usability and make sure that users are at the forefront of everything we design. Because if we do that, that'll make our companies stand out.
Yeah, we talked about that, didn't we, the other day? And it sounds kind of obvious, doesn't it? But 5-10 years ago, a user experience person or a UI UX designer didn't exist. Now it does, because people are developing products with the user at the heart of everything, and that's something you passionately believe in.
Yes, and I was really pleased, and I'm going to give him a shout out here, to see that Mark Zuckerberg has actually made a real drive to make Facebook one of the most accessible social platforms in the world, and I hope he does that. And he's doing it via artificial intelligence. He's doing it via machine learning. He's doing it via users at the forefront. I was lucky enough a year and a half ago to look at Facebook for Business before it was released, and I was asked to try and break it.
Right.
And as soon as I put a screen reader on it, it broke. So basically, I really think if you want to design innovative technology, have a user there with you.
And what's your, we can talk about obviously a lot of large organisations that have got billions of dollars, billions of pounds to invest in user testing and developing more accessible products and services. But what can the average company do these days to make their products more accessible? They're not going to cost them a huge amount of investment.
Here's a prime example. You get a contract to sign, okay? And it's usually in PDF, usually in a PDF document. I can't read that. Usually the T's and C's are not able to be enlarged because, again, they're in a cryptic locked PDF. Put it in a Word document, send the password for that Word document, and use something like DocuSign so that people can just type their name and it gives them a digital signature. And yes, they do stand up in court because I work, as you may come on to later, I work with governments here in Wales, and a lot of the documents that are being given to social workers that are going through fitness to practice hearings are being sent digitally to advise their legal teams. So it can be done. You just need to look at how you do it.
Okay. I'm going to bring in Andy and Howard here now. Andy, you've developed so many different websites, and I know we've talked about the e-commerce websites you developed at World Stores in your career. Was this, and you've probably seen the change really in the last 15, 20 years. So I'm going to pick on your age a little bit, but how have you seen it change from your point of view in terms of accessibility of websites? Because we've gone beyond just W3C standards, haven't we?
Yeah, I think the problem is that I don't know what pound you call this one. What do you call it, Damien?
Purple pound.
Purple pound. All right. So the purple pound was never really seen as the size it is. Yeah. So it wasn't a target. The disability access, even the W3C stuff, was seen as a pain in the arse to do, because basically it was just another level of things that had to be done all the time. So I think we probably didn't do very well, at least for the first 5-10 years of doing things, until we actually had frameworks which actually enabled these things to be done for us a lot easier, and people didn't have to think so much about it. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with the more active content type websites and how that ties into the readers and things. Whereas static text is something you've got alts for and you can actually key into. Whereas if it's dynamic content, I'm not sure how that works for you. What sort of sites do you find are actually good examples at the moment, and which ones are bad ones?
They've all got their good part. All the major ones have got their good points, and they've all got their bad points. But one I would say that is really good, and again, it comes back to Microsoft, is they've put accessibility checkers in all their Office 360 platforms. So if you develop a document on their intranet offering, you can check whether it's got meta tagging automatically. So one plug I always give it is make sure it is automatic. So when you check a document, it'll automatically tell you whether it's accessible or not.
Yeah, I think that it needs to be built into the way in which we build websites and the way in which we build product. It shouldn't be something which we try and bolt on as a, oh, we forgot about that now, we better sort of tick that box as well.
Yeah, and also the other thing which is really, really powerful is people like the BBC News websites use artificial intelligence to put those meta tags into the pictures. So a lot of the news sites now aren't being put together by reporters. They're being put together by algorithms.
So I imagine there is an issue where you've got what is creative content, visuals, rather than something which is textual within the site, because you've got to interpret that that image, haven't you?
Yeah, and one negative, everyone bangs on about Chrome, and how accessible Chrome is, but then there is better accessibility features in some of these web browsers that are actually being developed by a collection of people. So like Firefox, for example, in my opinion, is one of the most accessible. Because it's being developed by people who actually use it every day.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I probably, looking back, can see is that we didn't actually have anybody on team who was, if you like, the customer, of a disabled user to be able to actually test against and see whether or not what we were doing was actually up to snuff. I mean, I think that it's, as they recognise the purple pound has got some power, yeah, then they're going to want to bring some people in who actually are that customer as part of the development process in order to be able to make sure that they can access it.
And that's why I partnered up with Sam to do this talk, because I knew there was a lot of techie guys on here, and I was going to say, yes, there is a lot of companies that can charge you a lot of money to do it, but actually bring somebody in that understands diversity and the technology side like I do. So when you go in to possibly build government a new website, for example, you can say, actually, we've already got that. Yes, we'll reach out to your customer base, but also our disabled person that we've got on the team is very capable of running customer engagement exercises. So we're actually offering you a stronger offering, but it is going to be around the whole of that offering. We're not just going to do it because you tell us we need to do it.
Yeah, I think we need to bring the diversity in-house so that we can actually access it and develop to use that as a customer.
I was hoping there was more people on this call than there is, because I was gonna throw a challenge and say, let's develop some usable bits of tech that we know our customers use, but let's develop them with accessibility right up there and stand out, because that's what make us stand out as experts.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Damian. All right.
Yeah.
You said you've got a reading age of 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that dyslexic or?
That's dyslexia, and that is also made worse by the cerebral palsy. So they don't know whether it's pure dyslexia or whether it's partly complicated by the cerebral palsy.
Right, because I actually put a post out a while back about the fonts, because I discovered that there was a reason behind Comic Sans font, which was actually that it is more readable by dyslexics.
Yeah.
Right, now I've actually got some grandchildren, one of which is actually dyslexic, and I'm interested in what it is that can be developed in order to make it easier for them. So I'm actually in the process at the moment of doing some bits and pieces to do some image swapping for letters.
I would say don't try and standardize, because everyone's different.
Yeah, I want to make it so it's actually customizable.
Yeah, that's what.
You know, if you need green flamingos to represent something, then use that. You know, that's.
Yeah, that's. I mean, if anyone looks at my calendar on Google Apps for work, I use colors to tell me what type of meetings I've got.
Yeah.
Understand. If I could just jump in, Damian, as a thought leader, but also as a consumer, how are you seeing tech for the disabled community affecting the community? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Is it being taken account of? Is it only some companies? How do you see it?
Again, I believe a lot more is going to be done via voice.
Right.
Because if we've all got smart speakers of all different denominations and at home, and I really believe that we need to democratize accessibility, because again, it shouldn't be there for the few, it should be there for the many. So I think
Of course.
that we need to really make it not a nice to have, but it's already built in.
Absolutely agree with that. How do you see it working? The voice, particularly, I'm interested in. I have a bank account with one of the big high street banks.
Yeah.
When I call them up, I have to say, you know, my voice is my password,
Okay.
which I imagine works relatively well for security. But how does it work? How does that sort of thing work for you personally? And
let me throw a curveball in there. Okay, you might be able to pick up in my voice that there's different inflections because I'm having muscle spasms. You have to remember, I couldn't speak until I was 5 years old.
Right.
Okay, they told me I never would speak, and now I'm speaking on international stages. So, but every time I go through voice verification, I have to make sure that I haven't had anything
Right.
stressful happening before I go onto that call. Otherwise, they say I'm defrauding my own bank account.
I understand. And that's my question. So in reality, it's not really there yet.
No.
It's almost, I don't want to call it tokenism because that's a little bit harsh. But
it's there because we've got the technology that will put automatic flags on accounts as soon as telephone numbers come up. And we know that the app can identify us if we call through an app. So the call center should automatically see a flag that says, this is Damian calling us. So he might say, if he's not successful through voice verification, he might say, take me through alternative verification, but you have to ask that question.
Yeah, it's there for the able-bodied, isn't it, though? It wasn't actually designed as a disability access process.
No.
Yeah.
But something that is really, really interesting is Barclays have got a system now where they've got an app on my phone. So every time I go into branch, they'll get a sort of near field message saying Damian's just come into branch. And I've okayed with them what I'm going to need accessibility wise. So they'll come to me and say, can I support you? So you can use technology to break some of those barriers down.
Yeah. It's interesting, Damian, and I think we spoke the other day. I met with Birmingham University about 2-3 years ago, and I met with the head of IT there, and we were talking about a project to deliver engineers into the uni.
Yeah.
But he was explaining that over the last 10-15 years, how we interact with our computers has changed massively, and the job titles of those people have changed massively. So whereas 10, 15, 20 years ago, they were offering courses for the first graphic designers, the first people that were programming with action scripts and Flash, and they were very graphic related. That's then changed into what we now call front-end developers, HTML people, basically. And now we're talking about UI UX people who are effectively the people that are designing the front end of any website or app or anything like that. And that's a thing now. And he said the next big thing will be how you reimagine how we interface with any of our devices, and it will be all over voice. And actually the demand for people that have got psychology degrees, they will be the people that understand how others talk and what they're saying or what they're interpreting by saying, by using their psychology to program digital assistants. Yeah. So he was saying that the next courses for people like that are going to be around psychology and actually people that program digital assistants. So it's changed massively, hasn't it? Just in 5-10 years, and goodness knows what it's going to look like to our grandchildren.
Yeah, two real things there. There's a really good documentary on Channel 4 that speaks to I think he was a IT professor, but has now got MS, and he is trying to develop the first computer that can be operated via his brain. Okay, because he says that he wants to be able to be himself, but using technology. If you come to some of my other talks, I brand myself up as a social architect, and people say to me, well, what's a social architect? And the answer I give is somebody that uses business processes to look at societal issues, to fix societal issues.
And that's
Just
that.
as a, sorry, please.
No, sorry, Howard, you go.
I was just going to raise a point that a lot of the data that people were worried about that's being collected by TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, that is actually UX data that they're picking up and understanding how that works and how people are interacting with whatever they're looking at. And that's why people aren't understanding the platforms properly. That's the data they're mining.
Yeah. And we're all used to talking about something, and then all of a sudden we see it on a well-known search engine.
Yes, exactly. Particularly with the smart speakers in the room.
Yes.
Yeah, we laugh about that, but it is a thing, isn't it? We know that happens.
Yeah.
So Damian, tell us a little bit about the organisations you're currently working with and what their objectives are.
Okay, I've just been extended with the Welsh Government for another year. I was one of the key architects that helped write the social services and wellbeing legislation that social services has to work under here in Wales. I was also one of the key architects in England that developed the curriculums for the National School of Healthcare Science. So all the scientists that are now working on COVID were probably trained on my curriculum. So for somebody that basically got written off at school, I've done some quite big societal change pieces. And I find it really, really difficult when I go networking and people say, well, what do you do? Because one thing that Sam didn't tell you is a lot of the coaching and mentoring I do is with people that you may or may not know are senior civil servants. There's a senior civil service training program which is called affectionately summer school, but anyone that goes on it knows it's basically like the SAS for civil servants. and I was lucky enough to be a delegate on it because people could see that I was going to be someone that could step up into senior leadership programs. The following year I was teaching on it. The following year after that I was coaching people who were finding the process difficult. And now I'm a Welsh government accredited and UK accredited government coach that works with some of the largest organizations in the world to make sure their leaders step up in difficult times. But you go into a standard networking environment and people go, so what do you do?
And Damien, if I could just ask you a bit more about that work, is that work in terms of inclusion or in terms of how would you describe it in elevator?
I'd say that a lot of it is underpinned by inclusion, but a lot of it looks at the business processes of an organization. For example, I might go in and help a board realize that they're not being effective. I might even go in and sit with a board that's not being totally clean with their governance. And And a lot of what I do is break down barriers to allow those conversations to happen. So coming back to what I identified myself as a social architect, it's about looking at those barriers and reshaping the society that we live in for future generations.
Damian, you mentioned earlier about leaders being responsible for this. And I think we talked about this, you know, when it comes to an organization or a business, how important is it for a culture change to happen, for the leaders to really take responsibility for that?
If you want real, authentic change to happen in an organization, it has to happen at all levels. But to get some of that authentic change management, you have to share stories like what I've just shared with you about myself to get people to buy in to this is the real reason why we're doing it. It's not just about because it looks good on the bottom line. It's actually because we're going to help Damian have a better life. Yes, it will affect our bottom line, but it's also about getting people to buy into that mission. It's like one of the major things that Microsoft did was they've now developed a electric wheelchair that can be operated using your eyes.
Wow.
And that came out of a hackathon because people didn't believe it could be done. And Jenny Lay Flurrie turned around and said, there's the money. You've got a weekend, go and do it. And they did it with software that's available off the shelf.
Wow.
So if you were to go into an organization now, Damian, and they asked you for the first thing that they should consider, what's the first thing, or could you give us some sort of idea of the things that they can do quickly straight away to make changes?
I'll give you 3 top tips, okay? And I'll make those really sort of business focused. So if you're putting out documents, put a caption at the end of your email that says, if you can't understand this email and you need someone to explain it to you, ring me. If you can't access these documents, here's a number of links that you can try that might be able to make the links accessible. Or also talk to your stakeholders. So don't try and fit everybody into one customer journey, okay? Because how you will notice if there's any difficulties is by saying, I'm noticing that particular customer keeps coming back to us when we send them those documents. So use that as a touch point. Actually reach out to them and say, what can we do to make you feel more included? Because the more you can understand your customers, the more you'll be able to tailor your approach.
So it's asking the obvious questions that people are just not obviously asking, really, isn't it?
It's just not where you need to go a bit further. I think what it is we've all gone down the some way down the journey towards do you need this in another language, or do you need this in another format, maybe? Yeah. But we haven't gone further to say, do you actually need somebody to read it out to you, or do you actually need to go to a link where this thing will be read out to you?
And just to plug that, there's a piece of software that I helped develop again that can make a website accessible in 20 different languages.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. What it points to me is that there is still a poor link between product and UX design and actual customer feedback.
Yeah.
And you need to have that virtuous circle for everything you want to do for your customers, so that you can use your data to inform your products and help your customers actually solve whatever it is you're trying to solve for them.
I think what we've been doing is using a different set of customers.
Yeah.
We've been using the customers who are like us, yeah,
Yeah.
and ignoring the others. And that goes for, you know, not just for disability, it goes for all sorts of diversity issues.
But
Very much so.
also, senior leaders, okay, actually put time in your diary to walk the floor and find out what's going on. Because there might be somebody that is really passionate in your team that can really change things for you, but unless you give them the chance to have that conversation with you, nothing will change. And please, 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 anyone that designs technology, get out there and use it.
Absolutely.
Get out there and sit with about 6 or 7 users and say, I'm not here to judge you, just basically use our software and tell us what you want. I'm sure you've all seen it on Zoom. They've got a feedback capability that you can now give the host feedback. Okay, use things like that. If you come into any of the meetings I have 3 touch points where I can touch that client and say, I will customize my meeting environment to help you have the best experience you will have. I reach out to them at the beginning of the process, and it says, please connect with one of my team. I reach out to them just before they come into the meeting, and it says, if they want to have a drink or they need to be sat a certain way, do it. Make yourself comfortable that way. And then I ask them at the end, is there anything I could do to make your experience better next time we meet? And then I ask them 24 hours afterwards, have you any questions or anything I can do to help you have a better experience with me?
That's great, that, Damian. Really, really good. I really, I think we've all sort of opened our eyes up to things that we'd never even really considered, I guess. Talking, just coming back to your book, Damian, what made you want to write that book?
My mum was told that she could challenge the authorities and prove negligence, but it left my mum with severe mental health problems, so that she was actually intimidated, even though my mum was very eminent in her own profession, making hearing aids for people with complex hearing problems. She still felt challenged by doctors. I then went and tried to challenge it myself, and I got told I'd left it too long. So I thought, how can I get the message out that there's a failure in the system? And I thought the only way I can do it is by putting the evidence out there in the book and letting people make decisions themselves. And
how long ago was that, Damian, that when it was published?
It was published back last year.
And how did that feel? How long did it take you to write it altogether?
It took us over a year, but again, my husband's a best-selling author in his own right. So then I wanted it out by my birthday. So I said I'm gonna have to basically lock myself away and finish it. So the final sprint took us about 6 weeks.
Good for you. I'm, I take my hat off to anybody that can publish or even begin to write a book. So Well done to you, Damian.
And I'm just about to publish Loving Damian, which is the next book, which talks about some of the unfair things which disabled people face if they want to find love.
You've written another book.
Yes.
Oh my God! Right, okay. You weren't happy with just one, Damian. You've had to go and write another one.
Yeah,
But
that's coming out at the end of next. Well, it was due to come out at the end of this year. Due to COVID, it'll probably come out at the beginning of 2021. And then there's a book on leadership, which I'm looking for contributors to. So if there's anybody on this call that would like to contribute to that, please feel free to message me. And that goes out to anyone that's listening to this as a recorded session as well, because I believe that we really need to get a real conversation going about true, authentic leadership.
I think you're absolutely right, Damian. I couldn't agree with you more. Howard, Andrew, have you got anything that you'd like to add?
Nothing specifically from me, thank you. I will get in contact, Damian. I think it's quite. I don't know what the right word to use is. It's incredibly impressive. There's your 2 books out, and the legislation and everything like that. It's amazing.
Please, the 2 guys that are on the call and yourself, Sam, send me your addresses, and I will make sure that you get a signed copy of this, the current book that's out, and and the other 2 books that are just about to be released.
Thank you, Damian.
Very kind. Thank you.
Very kind, Damian. Thank you. I think, listen, by far, you're the first person we've had on one of our roundtables that is a published author, and very impressive that not just once but twice and soon to be 3 times. You're certainly the most inspirational person we've had on our roundtable so far, Damian. And I thank you for your time. I really do. I think.
Can I just say something to you, Sam, as well? I really thought a mutual friend brought me to these webinars. His name escapes me. The Scottish gentleman that you had on, Simon Ellis, brought me onto these calls and really said I needed to connect with you guys. I really feel part of the team, and I look forward to any of the projects that I can help develop. And if I can inspire any of the people on future calls, I'm always happy to do that.
I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that will happen, Damian. You're going to be welcomed on every single one of our calls, and I'm sure you'll definitely inspire others. And thank you very much for giving your time. I really do appreciate it.
And just in closing, anyone that's listening, reach out to me on LinkedIn and let's set up a virtual coffee, because who knows, that conversation might light the next spark that changes the world.
Absolutely. Andy, Howard, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. It's been a really small, a very intimate this one tonight. I guess that school's going back. People maybe in the rush hour at the moment maybe couldn't join us, but thankfully it's been recorded. We'll put this one out on YouTube tomorrow morning, and I'll get an email out to all the people that missed it. Definitely one to catch up on. So, Damian, again, thank you very much. Howard, thank you. Andrew, thank you. And we'll see you on the next one. Next week, guys, we're doing cybersecurity. And we've got Mark Evans, who's part of our network, talking about cybersecurity. And in a couple of weeks' time, we've got a 3-panel CIO, CTOs. We've got Nigel Lemon, Jonathan Mortlock, and Andy Brookhausen. They're going to be talking about getting the balance right between spend and invest. Well, spend in tech in 2021, and obviously managing costs as well after COVID. So join us for that one as well. Damian, thank you again, mate. Really appreciate it.
I really look forward to jumping on all the future calls. And if anybody's listening to this, please take the offer and let's have that coffee that might change the world.
Absolutely. And listen, in the video on YouTube, we'll have your contact details in there, Damian, and your LinkedIn profile. Okay, mate.
Great. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much,
Howard,
Damien. Thanks,
thanks,
for
guys.
Thanks a lot, mate.
Cheers.